Welcome to the Mild Opinion Podcast. I'm Luke,
I'm Logan.
and today we're sharing some of our hot takes on DC. And we've previously done a hot takes episode on Marvel with Marvel movies, but today we're doing the same with DC projects. So, would you like to start us off?
I shall. So this one, it's kind of, I guess it is still a hot take, but it's one of the things that we've talked about a little bit before. And I'd like to say this before I get a little more into it. I'm not saying that I don't like these characters and that I don't want to see content of them or anything of that nature. It's just one of those things, and it happens in Marvel too, that as necessary as they are, I would say I am tired of seeing the same characters over and over again, getting rehashed over and over again, especially in DC, because they've restarted what they're doing in terms of like the DCU and all that so many times. They had the Snyderverse, they've had individual movies, and it's just one of those things where I feel like I'm just kind of overseeing a new Batman or a new Superman or this different, it's just there's so many, especially in DC, there's so many good characters that have not been used at all, but we keep getting more Batman, more Superman. And Batman and Superman are kind of like the main framework for DC. Like they kind of have to be in it. But at the same time, like there's more unique stuff like Watchmen. Watchmen is like an awesome movie.
Watchmen, John Constantine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
stuff like that like don't get their time in the limelight, but we've seen 5 different iterations of Batman and however many of Superman and stuff like that. And it's like even people who are pretty big, like common in terms of DC superheroes, like Martian Manhunter. I want to see more stuff of Martian Manhunter. He's not in anything. I mean, he'll show up every now and then, just like a cameo, some random role in a movie or something.
Yeah.
But like stuff like that, I'm tired of seeing the Batmans and the Supermans and all that over and over again when there's all of these other DC heroes and stuff that have not had anything.
Yeah. I can 100% agree with that. And I think it here's a weird thing is the Flash specifically, I'll bring this up about, has his own movie that is called The Flash, but it's not a Flash movie. And how long did it take to get to the Flash, who in and of himself is a very popular superhero, and then they gave us this like multiverse jargon slop in the midst of DC falling apart, and we're like, it's a Flash movie, but it was really kind of a, oh, Michael Keaton Batman is in this, so I'll go watch it. It's like,
with Superman villains.
yeah,
Then,
it's like, no, give us the Flash, not the Snyder Flash, who's already had all of that. It's like, we haven't had that. We've had the CW show, which was good for a little bit, but with a character like that, and then also Aquaman, it took how long to get an Aquaman movie? And I like the first Aquaman movie. I thought it was
too.
pretty good for it being Aquaman. But yeah, there's all these DC characters that have shows that they show up in, or someone else's movie they'll show up in, or very long animated series of, but then they fall flat on like having a project focused on that character. And like you said, there's all these characters that DC has that are like so interesting, and they get grouped into teams a lot, which is fine because DC has a lot of teams like Marvel does, but there's so many of them that deserve their spot to really be built on. I think that will happen in the new DCU. I think what you're describing is why they are waiting a little bit with the new Batman. I really don't think they need to wait that long with the new Wonder Woman because there
Yeah.
hasn't been a ton of Wonder Woman content in the past to begin with, apart from, like the Snyder Justice League stuff and her own two movies. But before that, there's like how many Superman movies and how many Batman movies,
Yeah.
and you say this is a trinity of them. It's like, give us a good classic Wonder Woman movie and make sure these characters are what they're supposed to be on their own, and then start throwing them into big
Yep.
teams and give these other characters a lot of time to shine too.
Yeah.
Like, it was good to see in Superman that there's all these other superheroes and stuff, but it's like, okay, now give us a lot more of them. You
Yeah.
know?
Lay the groundwork for more to come, not just, oh, by the way, here's all these guys too. Plus, you've already seen Superman.
Yeah, and it's like we're obviously gonna get a lot of Superman and Batman content for a long time, but absolutely there are so many DC characters and teams, and like, yeah, but Watchmen is like its own separate entity that can be a part of this stuff, but there's so many interesting dynamics and teams and people with insane backstories that just have never gotten shown because of that.
Hmm.
Well, I'll hit you with my first one, and I don't know how hot of a take this is. I've just kind of been iffy on it. Is I think that the first Green Lantern DC project should not be a show. It should be a movie, and I don't understand why it's a show, because it just rubs me the wrong way. I don't have a lot more to go on. I really want just a big classic, a classic what Green Lantern should be movie, not the Ryan Reynolds thing.
Yeah.
Uh, but like a, give me whichever Green Lantern you're going with, give me them. Give me Sinestro, like the Green Lantern bad guy, because there hasn't been a good live action Sinestro. There almost was, because he was one of the redeemable parts of that movie, and then it was a cool setup with him getting the yellow ring. But I think having just the green versus yellow rings in a big theatrical thing is worth it. And then I feel like the show is just gonna be so much like, let's introduce every single Green Lantern, or like Lantern Corps all at once, and like we're gonna make these pink lanterns and like the blue lanterns at war with each other, and then like
Hmm.
I think it's just gonna be way too much all at once, and Green Lantern just has not had the proper treatment. I've always really liked him. It's just bizarre to me that with how well known of a Justice League character he is, and like a DC character in general, that they're starting with a movie or a show for him.
Yeah, I can agree. Because also, Green Lantern is a huge, huge, huge DC character. He has a huge loyal fan base. A lot of people, that's their favorite superhero. And the concept is awesome. I mean, there's like so much content that you could have with Green
There's
Lantern.
tons. If you like think about all the Lantern cores, one of his big bads is like a big bad to the Justice League, who's
Hmm.
Necrom, who's like Black
Hmm.
Lantern. But yeah, like
And it just feels like, you know, he's never had like real like good proper like media, like, you know what I mean, like shows, movies, any of it. Give him a big multi hundreds of $1 million feature film, man. Like, give him the Superman treatment, you know what I
yeah,
mean, give him the Batman treatment, because it would pay off and people would really enjoy that.
yeah. I I think the thought process I can imagine with that is that in DC, in like the world building, it's going to be such a major catalyst for exploring cosmic DC stuff, because it's like it's obviously going to be the whole core of Green Lanterns, and that's the entire galaxy and more. So it's going to be all over the place. It's going to be an easy way for them to be like, oh, here's this threat, and it showed up for Green Lantern. All the Green Lanterns know about it, and they are just a big presence in DC. But I would have loved it if he got the big screen, like, well done treatment, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got another take you'd like to throw out here?
I do have another take. So, my next hot take is one that I think is kind of, not that controversial. We've spoke on it a little bit in the past. But, like, the next slate of, like, movies and stuff coming up in the new DCU and stuff like that, like the Clayface movie, stuff like that, how we think it sounds like it's going to be, like, super awesome. Like, we're super, like, into that idea. Like, it's going to be super cool, whatever. I just feel like for something like this, like, starting, like, a whole new DC universe and stuff like that in terms of, like, movies and shows, and having, I love the way that they do, whenever, whoever it is, DC, Marvel, whatever, they have, like, the heroes, like Superman and all that, they're established, and that's fine, because it happens in Marvel too, with, like, Captain America and Iron Man and whatever. Your main guys, like, yeah, sure, get them established. If you're restarting it with DC, Superman wasn't a bad call, even though we just talked about how it's too much.
Yeah.
But, you have to. You're restarting the whole thing. And, like, yeah, there's, like, Peacemaker in there and all that, too. But I just think, with, like, Clayface coming up and all that, I think it'll be awesome. But at the same time, I feel like if you're going to go with someone more obscure for, like, a film or, something like that, I feel like it needs to be somebody that's, like, more than that. I feel like that's a little bit too out of the way. Which, I don't know how they're going to use that and all that, because I'm still excited for it. But just, it might be a little too out of the way for what they're doing. Kind of like when Marvel introduced, like, the Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, they weren't that popular back then and all that. And it was a little out of the way, but also it was cool and it made sense. And it was like, okay, like, that was pretty good. I just feel like with, like, Clayface, being a Batman villain and all that, and, like, not... It just... I don't know what they're going to do with him, but I'm just like, how is this... Especially being, like, the, whatever, what is that going to be? The second, third film slated for this or something like that?
I think it's the third. It might be more. I know there's Supergirl in between there, and I think there's a TV show or two.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's 2026.
Yeah, just, I mean, in terms of, like, feature films wise, stuff like that, for, like, the new DCU, I'm like, that's a little too out of the way. I feel like you could have filled that in with somebody that's, like, not quite Justice League level hero, but, still cool, or, like, a cool team or something like that. Like, I feel like that's a little... I just think there should have been a little bit more than, like, that out of the way. You know what I mean? Like, that different.
And, too, if they're going the route of a Batman villain, Clayface is... I don't want to, like, say anything bad about the character, because he's an interesting character, but he's not as A-tier Batman villain as some of the other ones, where it's like, name any other Batman villain besides Joker that you've seen in a movie already, and they could use a solo project. But it's like, Clayface has never been in a Batman movie that's live action, so it's interesting. Yeah, Clayface first without Batman, unless it's like the thing we discussed where it's like Clayface is gonna be the perspective of, like, the good guy, and Batman's gonna be like we don't see him, you just, like, see his shadow, and, like, silhouette and stuff like that, which would be fascinating and would be awesome. I just don't feel like they're gonna do that. I think it'd be really cool, but I don't think that's the way they're gonna go with it.
Yeah, and I guess this take is kind of on board with the last take, except the very opposite way. Where, like, I feel like Superman and Batman have had too much stuff, and there's underrated heroes and stuff that didn't get enough. This is kind of way opposite. Now Clayface is getting his own movie, but some of these guys who I feel are, like, Martian Manhunter and all them, are, like, more deserving. And they also just still don't have stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of like, man, I just don't... When are these other characters going to get their time in the limelight, I guess? Because, like, you're giving a feature film to Batman villain, a B-tier Batman villain.
I definitely could see, though, speaking of Martian Manhunter, him showing up in because he has a lot of similar stuff with like Superman and Supergirl. He'll just like show up. I could see him showing up in Supergirl or the next Superman movie.
Yeah.
I'd honestly probably bet more money on the Supergirl movie because I think that'd be a good spot for it. But other than that, if they don't do that, then yeah, he would deserve his own thing. Like I think he's a very interesting character, and I mean, he just looks cool too.
Yeah.
Yeah. My next hot take is specifically about something that happened in Peacemaker, which is that Lex Luthor from the Superman movie shows up in it, and it's because Rick Flag Sr., who is also in the Superman movie, like comes to him about something, and they use that as a way to tease what is going to happen in the next Superman movie. But I know that Lex Luthor, within about like 30 seconds of being on screen in this, is like throwing out F-bombs and like being all crass and stuff like that. So my hot take on it is they shouldn't take a character from a PG-13 show or movie, drop them into an R-rated thing, and then because they're now in an R-rated thing, have them like spewing out stuff that they're allowed to say now. And they shouldn't relate that in any way, in my opinion, to anything more than a slight mention. Instead, they gave kind of like oh, there's like this thing that's gonna happen, or this person we need to be aware of. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I don't like that. When I saw that, it seemed so out of character, and I understand, like, yeah, his whole evil mastermind villain plan fell apart in Superman, but it's like, I don't want then to hear Lex Luthor coming on here saying some just like vulgar for the sake of being vulgar stuff, because it just immediately made me be like, that didn't feel like I'm looking at Lex Luthor. It makes me feel like I'm looking at the butt of a joke when he should already be kind of like more just like cold and like calculating, like I have a plan. Instead he's like, oh, every day I hear like my cellmates, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
But it just rubbed me the wrong way. I don't think characters being in each other's project should change who that character is unless something happens to them in that project that changes
that would
who
change
they are.
it. Exactly. Just a cameo should not make you act different just to fit the theme of whatever you're cameoing in.
Yeah, because in watching Superman, it seemed like he's more, like he holds himself to a higher standing of like, oh, I wouldn't say or do that. And then it's just like, nope, because I'm here now, because I lost last time you saw me, now I'm gonna like just like, that just rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as that goes too, even if it is like they're trying to get at that, like, oh yeah, like he lost in his master plan and all that, does that just mean that he's gonna be some vulgar, angry, mindless idiot from now on? You know what I mean? Like, is that how he's gonna be from now on? Because then that just kind of
the impact that it
negative
would have
character
had,
trait.
Yeah, I feel like the impact it could have had if he just came in and already seemed like collected. Maybe like one F-bomb, but in the context of what he said, I was like, no, I don't feel like that's what Lex Luthor would say. Not the Lex Luthor that I just watched in Superman. I feel like he'd already have like rallied and be like, all right, I'm moving forward now.
Yeah, and I mean, just in general, like, seeing how cool and how good he was as a villain in Superman, and then next thing you see him as is like that, and then it's like, I'm sure he'll be back. It's Lex Luthor. I mean, is he going to be like that still? Is he not? I don't want him to be. You know what I mean? Because that's just not a good look, but I mean, I guess we'll find out.
Yes, we will.
And all then,
what you got?
My next hot take is, so I think in terms of what we have going on so far, with like the massive success of Superman, the massive success of Peacemaker, which Peacemaker's success is a little different because that's kind of being brought in, even though it was already successful before, like
Yeah.
you know, kind of the rehashing of the DCU. But either way, with those being wildly successful and stuff like that, I don't want them to, I guess, kind of softball what's happening next and like the DCU stuff. Like I don't want it to be one of those things where it's like, oh well, we want to keep making money. You know what I mean? Like hit after hit, which obviously you do. That's what the whole business is about. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't want it to start lacking because they think that it's gonna make a good movie or make a good show or anything like that. Like I want it to be like, you know, thought out and you know, like I don't want to just see the same basic stuff all the time. Which you know, like I said, I think Clayface is a little bit like too like okay, what the heck is going on? Like we've barely even established the DCU, but at the
Yeah.
same time, I'm like I don't want to just be a thing where it's like all right, like we've had a couple big projects. What else is going to be good? You know, a Justice League movie. You know what I mean? This, that, or the other. Like,
Yeah. Where
which
it's
is
like,
kind of what happened with like the Zack Snyder stuff. Like, it was kind of just started selling out like Batman versus Superman and stuff like that.
yeah,
Like stuff that
it
you
was
think would,
fast too.
yeah,
That was
like stuff that you
Superman.
think would make you money and something. I don't want to see that. I want interesting world building, a story that's leading up to something more that makes sense. God,
Yeah.
and as much as people don't like it when you compare them, I would kind of like to see like a little bit of like how early Marvel, early MCU stuff was going in this, like
Mm-hmm.
world building,
Build the
characters.
characters. Yeah.
Yeah, like I want to see it to where like it's working together in a way that makes sense, and it's not just oh yeah, how can we make $1 billion movie this time?
Yeah. In that regard, though, there's one thing I would say in terms of the Batman and Superman thing, which I would not mind seeing, which is not a Batman versus Superman, but I think it would be very fitting for what it seems like the vibe James Gunn is going for. To do, do you know what World's Finest is in DC?
Mm-hmm.
Like that, a project like that with Batman and Superman, where it's like them as a duo, I
Mm-hmm.
think would be perfect timing for that universe. That would also allow if they melded like a Batman and Superman, each of their previous movies lead into that with one another, or like just somewhere down the road. I think that would be good for other characters as well because then it's like okay, here's the big one, like the big two are in this one, and then fill in those gaps with like okay, this character needs a good movie of their own
Yeah.
where we would have put the Superman solo movie or whatever is where that's gonna go,
Mm-hmm.
or take an opportunity like that and be like, you know what, let's make a Nightwing movie or
Yeah.
like a Robin movie because Batman's gonna be off doing this.
Yeah.
That would be, that would, in my opinion, I think would be fitting for the new DC.
Yeah, I agree. I just, I don't want corny, not very well thought out. Like, this is what will make us money from a casual fan perspective.
Yeah. All right. The next hot take I have is I actually I don't know how much of a hot take this is. I don't think it's a big one. The first Suicide Squad movie, not the Suicide Squad, but the first just
Mhm.
Suicide Squad. That movie, I understand the problems with it. I think the villains are just like underwhelming and not all the characters are that great. But Will Smith as Deadshot and Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn make that movie way better than people pretend that it is. Like
Mhm.
people will like say, "Oh, it's horrible," like every single thing about it bad, like it's irredeemable. Yeah, some of the characters suck and what they did to Killer Croc in that movie, I'm just like that's so
Mhm.
underwhelming. But those two are like perfect versions of those
Mhm.
characters and they're exactly what I want, and honestly it's just Harley Quinn is just a crazy woman and Will Smith is just a guy who's good with guns, and they make them like such good parts of that team. And I don't have anything bad to say about either portrayal of that character.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that's why the Harley Quinn stuff like sparked so much, is because it's like, oh my gosh, like she nailed it. But Will Smith also killed it as Deadshot, and so I think that movie gets overhated on for all the reasons that are correct. I understand for those two specifically, they killed it, and it makes that movie better than people say it is.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I think there's nothing with those roles that I could really nitpick and be like, oh yeah, like, that was terrible. That was bad. That wasn't like Harley Quinn. That wasn't like Deadshot. I mean, they're just good actors playing good portrayals of the role. And I think they definitely elevated the movie in general, like from where it would have been if those characters were played by someone else.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could agree with that. Honestly, I didn't. I know people have their issues with it and all that, but I didn't hate Suicide Squad, to be honest. Like
I just wish it didn't. It felt to me just like the villains in that movie just kind of are really underwhelming to
yeah,
me. That's my
fell
main
flat.
issue with it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Do you have more hot takes?
I don't really have anything on my mind right now. You got anything else?
I've got one more, and it's not about the current DC, and this is the one I was telling you is like really specific, but this is about the movie The Dark Knight, which I've heard a lot of people in the past say that the Joker in that movie, it like makes it that it's not a Batman movie because he's like so big. And I've been able to understand that argument before, but I am to a point now where I've seen that movie enough where I like hard disagree with that, because you and I have talked about on the podcast before, and I think it was specifically in our Batman episode, about how Batman in those movies specifically, I mean in general yes, but in those movies they really hit on it, is like an idea, and it's like a symbol of what he stands for. It's like the man is just the man, and like Batman is the idea of him, right? In that movie, there's so much that Bruce Wayne is having behind the scenes when he's not Batman, where he's having these internal conflicts of like he doesn't understand the Joker because he doesn't operate like other criminals. He is like, Rachel Dawes dies and he goes through that, and he's like, I'm losing because I don't understand, or like because I'm failing. And by the end of the movie, he is able to realize that he can use the symbol of Batman to like take the heat for everything that just went wrong. And there's so much discussion through the movie about like what he as a man can take versus what Batman can do, and he thinks that Batman can't do it, but by the end of the movie he like lets Batman be the bad guy for everybody else, so that none of what really happened is like true.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way specifically, I'm sitting there and I'm like, no, because Bruce Wayne as Batman learned the biggest lesson and was able to overcome what the Joker was trying to do. He had to cheat to do it, kind of, but I still watch that movie and I'm like, this is definitely a Batman movie. And I would say from that standpoint, the idea of the Batman in that is like stronger than it is in some other movies. So I disagree with the point that like the Joker is the main character of that movie. I think, not to like crap all over the Joker, because like that's insane. There's no Joker like that. But yeah. I don't agree with the saying of like that it's not a Batman movie, because I think it very much in themes is a Batman movie.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a lot of people talk about the Joker in that movie as like, you know, the best villain of all times in terms of movies and stuff like that. Which there's a case to be made for that, because he is absolutely awesome. And I feel like a big part of that is just the plot, and also how well it was made and how well the acting was, how well the character was written for the Joker to kind of be seen in the limelight, but at the same time, it's like that's what made it interesting. Is like not only do you have like this great Batman portrayal, but the other shining star of this movie is just how awesome the villain is. Like it's not lacking in either way.
Mm.
So I think
And
if
you
you're going to
really
see,
sorry, go ahead.
if you're going to see this Batman movie, and then next thing you know, you're taken aback by how awesome the portrayal of Joker is. Then you kind of think like, oh man, well yeah, the Joker was the star of the show. So it kind of makes you forget that you were seeing, it's about Batman, it's about what he's going through. But then once you take a step back and think about it a little bit more, it's like what you said. This whole thing was like them showing off Joker just to emphasize what Batman and Bruce Wayne done in that movie.
Yeah, and I think that to go even further with that, that's like such an excellent like way of showing the dynamic of Joker to Batman is like Batman in those movies has such a until that point has a rigid view of like this is how criminals are, this is how they operate because he learned all of this through experience and what he was trained to do and stuff. And the reason the Joker trips him up so much is because he's somehow always ahead of him, yes, but it's also because he can't wrap his mind around what the Joker wants or like just that the Joker is here to screw things up and prove people who are in power wrong about things. So
Yeah.
it's a really good back and forth between the two of them, and it does what any good Batman villain should do, which is put Batman up against the ropes in a way he's never been before, which is like it's why Tom Hardy's Bane was a good Batman villain too, and it's why I think the Riddler was a good villain in the Batman is because he's always way ahead of what the Batman is thinking, and
Yeah.
Batman has to actively deal with a problem that he can't outsmart his way around.
Yeah, I agree. And I think not trying to be like one of those, oh, I have a podcast and I watch a lot of movies,
Yeah.
whatever. But just the way that they laid it out, Joker in that was easier to follow in terms of like story and like it being a great performance. But if you look into it a little deeper, like you said, like what Batman had to go through, what Bruce Wayne had to go through, and like this stuff that wasn't necessarily just like all action and all that, but like the more like, Bruce Wayne having conversations and with like Alfred and stuff like that or whatever.
Mm.
That stuff, like Joker being like easy to follow kind of is why people have that opinion of like, oh yeah, like, well, that was a great performance. The Joker was awesome, all that. But if you take a second to think about it a little bit more, that was just like a shining light on how like awesome Batman was in that, just
Yeah.
in general.
Well,
But that was just the easier performance to follow.
it's to like Bruce, and we won't stay too long on Batman here, but like Bruce Wayne and Batman, in a way they're the same, but in another way they're two different characters, and like what happens to Bruce Wayne affects how he is as Batman. What happens to Batman affects how he is as Bruce Wayne. So it's like whenever you see the Joker, it's like, oh my gosh, it's the Joker. But then when it like slows down for a second, that's when like Bruce is talking about like Alfred, like what do I even do in this moment and stuff, and Alfred has to like remind him like this is what you want as Batman, or like this is why you need to continue to be Batman and stuff. It's like Bruce Wayne is like the true struggle here, and like Batman is him being like, what do I do with Batman as this, because he's thinking about like giving up being Batman and like turning himself in, and then at the ending he finally comes to the conclusion where he's like, I just have to like let Batman be the fall for all of this. So it's like, yes, it does slow down with Bruce Wayne, but like he is the heart of what's going on here. So yeah, that's I don't know if that's a super hot take. I think there's definitely like a lot of discussion. I'm sure somebody could make an excellent argument of like, no, here's why the Joker is the true main character here, But yeah, do you have any more that you've pondered or thought of that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think I'm tapped out of hot takes for the day.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been the Mild Opinion Podcast. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next time.